Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Titan. Galador Station floated in the void like a lonely sentinel, anchored to the outer rim of the Zephyr star cluster, where space itself seemed wild and untamed, where cosmic storms roared silently through the void and ancient stellar winds whispered forgotten secrets. For most of its inhabitants, the station was a last bastion of civilization, a sprawling tangle of steel and glass, buzzing with the frenetic energy of trade, diplomacy, and survival. It was a place where species from all corners of the galaxy converged, where languages layered in a chaotic symphony of sounds and dialects echoed down the cold, narrow corridors. Yet among this vast array of life and culture, humans were becoming an increasingly rare sight. Only one remained here now, and his name was Captain Jace Landon. Jace was a relic of an older age, a human who had chosen to stay in the frontier, the edge of known space, when most of his kind had fled for the bustling cores of the galactic empires, or sought the safety of Earth's revitalized colonies. The outpost had once been a lively hub, where humans played a larger role in governance and trade, but years of political shifts, alien alliances, and economic downturns had slowly whittled their presence down to a solitary figure. Jace was more than just a captain. He was a symbol of humanity's stubborn refusal to vanish quietly, a man who held the line amid a sea of towering alien races with unfamiliar customs and inscrutable technologies. Life for Jace was a study in routine and resilience. He commanded a small but versatile starship, the Aurora's Edge, a trusty old vessel that had seen better days but was kept alive through his skillful hands and sheer will. His days were filled with the endless grind of hauling cargo, ferrying diplomats, and navigating the tangled politics of the station. The corridors he walked were lined with strange sights, elongated eyes of the Volari traders, the chitinous limbs of the Crothan mercenaries, the shimmering forms of the ethereal Zephyrix diplomats. Despite the cacophony of alien life around him, Jace often felt more isolated than ever, a lone human voice struggling to be heard across a universe that seemed to be moving on without him. Then, everything changed. The arrival of Kalira shattered the fragile equilibrium that had defined Galador Station for years. She was a Virenth, a race of towering warriors famed across the galaxy for their formidable physical presence and complex social rituals. Standing a staggering 8 feet tall, her lithe yet muscular frame was wrapped in skin that shimmered like molten metal, streaked with bioluminescent tattoos that pulsed rhythmically like a living heartbeat on display for all to see. Her eyes, fierce violet orbs glowing with intensity, held a mixture of ancient wisdom, raw power, and something far more dangerous, the unyielding heat of mating season. The Virenth mating season was a phenomenon unlike anything Jace had ever witnessed, a biological and cultural tempest that swept through their kind like a wildfire. It was not merely a time for reproduction, but a crucible of strength, dominance, and passion that redefined social hierarchies and personal bonds. When a Virenth entered this season, their energy surged, their senses sharpened, and their behaviors became unpredictable, fueled by primal urges and ancient instincts honed over millennia. For the station's inhabitants, especially for Jace, this was a time of caution and curiosity because Kalira was not just any Virenth. She was the last of her kind on Galador, and by an ironic twist of fate, Jace was the only human left. Her arrival was heralded by a flurry of diplomatic activity and whispered rumors. Ships lined the docking bays. Alien traders paused mid-negotiation to watch her step onto the station's metallic walkways with the confidence of a born warrior. The air seemed to crackle with tension. Even the station's ever-present hum seemed to falter beneath her imposing presence. Jace, meanwhile, watched from a distance, a strange mixture of awe and apprehension tightening his chest. He knew the stories, the legends of Virenth mating season, the chaos it could unleash, the demands it made not just on their bodies, but on the lives of those around them. And with Kalira's arrival, he felt the weight of being the last human, the only one left to face whatever storms were coming. Kalira's physicality was breathtaking. Her powerful limbs moved with a grace that belied their strength, her shoulders broad yet elegantly curved, and her hands ended in sharp, retractable claws that gleamed under the station's lights. Her long hair, streaked with silver and sapphire, cascaded down her back, swaying with every step like a living river of starlight. The bioluminescent tattoos along her skin were not mere decoration, they were markers of her lineage and status, shifting and glowing in complex patterns that communicated mood and intent in a language older than words. For days after her arrival, Kalira remained aloof, engaging with station personnel only when necessary, her sharp gaze missing nothing and her presence commanding respect and distance. But beneath the cool exterior, Jace sensed the storm gathering, a restlessness in her movements, a subtle tightening of her muscles, a flicker of hunger in her violet eyes. He had seen this before, in animals on Earth driven by their mating instincts, and in the human stories passed down through generations. But here, on Galador Station, with an 8-foot alien giant pacing the corridors, the stakes felt infinitely higher. Jace found himself drawn into a world that was alien and intoxicating, a world where instincts ruled over reason, and where the boundaries between danger and desire blurred. He was a spectator to Kalira's transformation, from controlled warrior to untamed force, as the mating season took hold and unleashed a primal fire that rippled through the station's fragile peace. Whispers followed her footsteps, tales of the ancient rituals she would perform, of the challenges she would issue, of the potential chaos that would spill into everyday life. More than once, Jace caught himself wondering what it would mean to be the sole human left standing in the midst of such overwhelming power and raw emotion. Would he be swept aside like so many others? Or could he find a way to navigate the storm, to survive and maybe even thrive against the odds? The questions burned in his mind even as the station's lights flickered and the distant stars seemed to hold their breath, awaiting the unfolding of a story that would change everything for him and for Kalira forever. Galador Station was more than just a collection of metal corridors, docking bays, and maintenance hubs. It was a crucible where countless species converged, their cultures and instincts swirling in a volatile dance of alliances, rivalries, and survival. In this nexus of life on the edge of civilized space, every presence carried weight. Every decision rippled across a complex web of interspecies politics and primal behavior. The station had long been Jace Landon's world, but with the arrival of Kalira, everything he had come to accept as normal began to shift beneath his feet like a seismic upheaval. Jace's routine life, a series of calculations, logistics, and lone hours spent maintaining the Aurora's edge, was suddenly peppered with an undercurrent of tension that hummed beneath the surface of every interaction. Whispers of Kalira's mating season traveled like wildfire through the station's networks, mixing awe and apprehension in equal measure. Rumors spoke of her towering height, her unparalleled strength, and the dangerous allure she possessed when the ancient instinct within her ignited like a supernova. She was a titan among mortals, a living tempest, and her arrival had become a focal point for every gaze and conversation. Jace, being human, had a perspective few others shared. Unlike the multi-limbed Crothan mercenaries or the telepathic Zephrix diplomats, he relied on instincts honed through a lifetime of grounded, hands-on experience. He understood machines, engines, and survival, but he was also deeply attuned to the subtle emotional currents that wove through the station's social fabric. The mating season wasn't just a biological event for the Virinth. It was a cultural crucible that shaped alliances and power balances. And for Jace, it was a harrowing revelation to realize that he was, by sheer coincidence and fate, the only human present during this volatile period. The last of his kind, in a storm of alien passions and ancient drives. Kalira was not oblivious to this fact. From the moment she stepped onto the platform, her violet eyes flickered with a sharp intelligence and a deep-seated wariness. She sensed the rarity of the human among so many other species and the significance it carried. Unlike others who might have recoiled or underestimated him, she regarded Jace with a complex mix of curiosity and challenge. Her towering form cast long shadows over the docks, her bioluminescent tattoos pulsing brighter as if resonating with some unseen frequency in his presence. Every movement she made was charged with latent energy. There was a rhythm to her breath, steady yet intense, muscles taut like coiled springs, the faint scent of exotic pheromones trailing her passage through the corridors. It was a scent that stirred ancient parts of the brain, signaling to others that the mating season was in full bloom. The station's usual cadence slowed, as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable spark that would ignite a conflagration of desire, challenge, and survival. For Jace, the first time he truly saw her up close was in the station's central commons, where beings from dozens of worlds gathered to eat, barter, and gossip. Kalira moved with the poise of a predator, each step measured and deliberate. Yet there was a flicker of vulnerability in the tension of her shoulders and the flickering shifts in her tattoos. She was formidable, no doubt, but beneath the warrior's exterior beat the heart of a creature wrestling with the primal chaos of mating urges. Jace's own heart responded in kind, a curious mingling of fascination and unease. Being human in this alien world was a constant exercise in adaptation, but here, it felt like walking a razor's edge. The mating season of the Virenth wasn't simply a time of courtship, it was a brutal, unrelenting trial by fire, where strength and cunning were tested in equal measure. To be the only human left during this storm was to be caught in the eye of a hurricane, vulnerable and exposed, yet oddly central. Their first conversation was brief, but charged with meaning. Kalira's voice, deep and resonant, carried the weight of centuries and battles, yet softened with an unexpected nuance when she addressed Jace directly. "You are the last of your kind here," she said, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made the surrounding crowd blur and fade. "In this time, that is both a danger and an opportunity." Jace nodded slowly, feeling the truth of her words settle over him like a shroud. He had lived through isolation, but never had he felt so acutely the precariousness of his position. The station's inhabitants, alien and alienating, watched their exchange with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. For the Virenth, the mating season was a sacred time that demanded respect, fear, and, for some, submission. Over the following days, Kalira's presence transformed Galador Station into a powder keg. The atmosphere grew charged with anticipation and tension. Traders whispered of the trials she would enact, of the ancient rituals that might unfold in the coming weeks, and of the desperate suitors who would rise and fall before her indomitable will. For Jace, every glance from her was a test, every interaction a subtle challenge to prove his worth or reveal his weakness. He spent long hours observing her from a distance, noting the small shifts in her behavior, the way her tattoos pulsed faster during quiet moments, the subtle flex of her claws when frustration took hold, the way her eyes flickered with flashes of something raw and vulnerable beneath her warrior's mask. The mating season was not just about power. It was about connection, survival, and the forging of bonds that transcended species and logic. Jace found himself drawn into a world where ancient instincts clashed with modern sensibilities. His human perspective offered no blueprint for navigating the tidal wave of emotion and expectation that surged around him. Yet, in the quiet moments, when the station hummed softly beneath the distant stars, he realized that his survival might depend on understanding not just Kalira's strength, but the fragile threads of her heart beneath the bioluminescent glow. He was the last human, the only one left standing at the crossroads of desire and destiny. And as the storm of mating season gathered strength, Jace knew that the choices he made and the bonds he forged would ripple far beyond the confines of Galador Station, shaping the fates of worlds and the future of a species not his own. Chapter 2. The Fire Within the Titan. The days that followed Kalira's arrival swept through Galador Station like a relentless tide, carrying with it the unpredictable currents of the Virenth mating season, a force both ancient and overwhelming, stirring the very air into a charged atmosphere that vibrated with anticipation, tension, and barely concealed desire. For Captain Jace Landon, the lone human whose presence on the station was as fragile as a flickering candle flame, the world he had known transformed with startling speed, its familiar boundaries dissolving beneath the weight of primal forces that few could fully comprehend, let alone control. From the moment Kalira's boots echoed down the station's polished corridors, the environment seemed to bend around her, a gravitational pull emanating from her massive, 8-foot frame that drew eyes, hearts, and thoughts like moths to a blazing star. Her bioluminescent tattoos pulsed brighter and faster each day, illuminating the dark spaces of the station with flickers of sapphire and violet light that seemed almost hypnotic. These tattoos were not mere decoration, but living symbols of her inner state, tangible markers of her rising passion and mounting impatience as the mating season tightened its grip, coiling around her like an ancient serpent, relentless and demanding. To those who understood the Virenth, this was the time of reckoning, when strength and willpower would be tested in ways that transcended the physical. The mating season was an ordeal etched into the very genome of their kind, a ruthless, transformative fire that could elevate warriors to unparalleled heights or reduce them to shattered ruins of their former selves. It was a time when emotional fortitude was as vital as physical prowess, when alliances were forged and broken beneath the glare of starlit challenges and unspoken promises. For Jace, a human unaccustomed to such extremes, it was a bewildering descent into a world where survival depended on reading every subtle gesture, every shift in tone, every flicker of light across Kalira's glowing skin. Jace's daily routine unraveled as he found himself drawn deeper into Kalira's orbit, not by choice, but by the inexorable pull of necessity and circumstance. His interactions with her had evolved from cautious curiosity to a tenuous partnership, born of mutual respect and a shared understanding that they were, in their own ways, the last of their kind on Galador. While the Virenth warrior battled the storm raging within her, Jace grappled with the complexities of being the sole human amidst a sea of alien emotions and expectations, a solitary island surrounded by an ocean of inscrutable desires. Their conversations, sparse at first, gradually unfolded into exchanges laden with meaning and subtlety. Kalira's voice, a rich baritone that resonated like a melody of war drums and whispered secrets, carried the weight of millennia. She spoke of her people's ancient rights, of the primal forces that governed her mating season, and of the burdens that came with being a warrior on the cusp of transformation. Her words painted a tapestry of raw power and vulnerability, a paradox that fascinated and unsettled Jace in equal measure. One evening, as the station's artificial sun dipped beneath the horizon of distant gas giants, Jace found himself standing beside Kalira on the observation deck, a vantage point that offered a breathtaking view of swirling nebulae and the endless tapestry of stars beyond. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension, the faint glow of her tattoos casting shimmering reflections on his weathered face. "You carry the weight of your species alone," Kalira said softly, her gaze fixed on the distant constellations. "And yet you stand strong." "What?" Jace exhaled slowly, the weight of solitude pressing down on his chest. "Because sometimes, strength is not about numbers or power," he replied, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "It's about refusing to give up, even when everything tells you to." Kalira turned to face him, her violet eyes searching his soul. "Your resilience intrigues me, human. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I understood." Their connection deepened in those moments, a fragile bridge between two beings shaped by vastly different worlds, but bound by the universal threads of survival and longing. Yet, beneath the growing intimacy lurked the ever-present danger of Kalira's mating season, a tempest that threatened to consume them both if left unchecked. As the days wore on, the station became a crucible of heightened emotions and shifting alliances. Kalira's behavior oscillated between fierce determination and restless yearning. Her interactions with others grew more intense, her once controlled demeanor giving way to flashes of impulsivity and unrestrained passion. The pheromones she emitted, an intoxicating blend of alien chemistry, swept through the station, stirring desires and tensions that simmered just beneath the surface. Jace found himself navigating a labyrinth of challenges, both external and internal. He became a reluctant confidant and protector, mediating disputes sparked by the upheaval of Kalira's presence and shielding her from those who sought to exploit or provoke the volatile warrior. His own feelings grew tangled in the web of duty, fascination, and a burgeoning desire he struggled to name or understand. One night, after a particularly grueling confrontation with a group of mercenaries attempting to test Kalira's patience and strength, Jace returned to his quarters, exhausted but resolute. The station's corridors were quieter now, shadows stretching long and thin beneath flickering lights. Yet even in solitude, the echoes of the day's turmoil lingered, mingling with the restless pulse of anticipation that never quite faded. He sat at his worn desk, the hum of distant engines a constant backdrop, and allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The enormity of his situation settled over him like a dense fog, the weight of being the last human, the only one left to face the intricate dance of an alien mating season, and the uncertain future unfolding between him and the towering titan who had so irrevocably changed his life. In the solitude of that night, Jace understood that survival was no longer just about endurance or cunning. It was about connection, trust, and the willingness to embrace the unknown. The fire within Kalira was not just a force to be reckoned with. It was a call to transformation for them both. And as the distant stars winked through the viewport, cold and indifferent, Jace resolved to stand with her through the storm, no matter what the cost. The mating season was far from over, and the true trials had only just begun. Chapter 2. The Fire Within the Titan. The atmosphere on Galador Station thickened with an almost tangible intensity as the days of Kalira's mating season progressed, and with every sunrise behind the shimmering domes, the alien titan's presence grew more overwhelming. She was a force of nature, a colossal being whose sheer size and bioluminescent tattoos cast a permanent twilight in the corridors she frequented. To many, she was a living myth made flesh, but to Jace Landon, she was an enigmatic puzzle, one that defied easy understanding and challenged everything he thought he knew about instinct, power, and connection. Every step Kalira took seemed to reverberate through the very bones of the station, and the air around her crackled with the electric charge of pheromones so potent that the most disciplined inhabitants found themselves disoriented, their thoughts clouded by the overwhelming scent of alien passion. Traders paused mid-bargain, mercenaries softened their hardened gazes, and diplomats found their carefully crafted words faltering, as if the storm within Kalira was calling to something primal in all who breathed the same air. It was a biological broadcast of raw desire and dominance, broadcast silently, but heard loud and clear across species lines. Jace himself was not immune. He felt his pulse quicken, his senses sharpen in strange new ways that sent a mixture of fear and fascination coursing through him. The mating season was a biological imperative that coursed through Kalira's veins like wildfire. It was not merely a fleeting desire but a deep, consuming force woven into the very fabric of Virenth physiology and culture. In her world, the season was marked by rituals that spanned weeks, tests of strength and wit, displays of dominance and submission, dances of fire and shadow under the twin moons of their homeworld. Here, on a remote space station surrounded by the cold silence of the stars, the ancient rites had been compressed into tense, fragile moments, but their impact was no less profound. The instincts shaped millennia of survival, and Kalira felt every one of them pounding within her, pushing her toward challenges she could not refuse without risking her honor and very life. Jace knew the stakes. The mating season was not a time for weakness. It was a crucible that could either forge a warrior anew or shatter her spirit forever. The challenges Kalira faced were not only internal battles against the raging hormones and primal needs, but also external conflicts with those who sought to prove themselves worthy of her favor, or to claim the power she embodied for their own ambitions. The station was rife with tension, alliances forming and fracturing like glass under pressure, every eye watching, every whisper pregnant with speculation. For the first time in years, Galador Station was alive with the dangerous and intoxicating promise of transformation or destruction. Despite the swirling chaos, Jace found himself increasingly entangled in Kalira's world. He was no longer a mere observer but a participant, a reluctant guardian tasked with walking the fine line between respect and involvement. His human sensibilities clashed and blended with the raw, alien intensity that defined her existence, creating a tapestry of emotions that was both bewildering and profoundly stirring. He watched as she trained in the station's combat arenas, her movements a breathtaking blend of brute power and fluid grace, each strike a dance of potential destruction and controlled fury. The other inhabitants steered clear during her sessions, knowing the firestorm of mating season made her unpredictable and dangerously fierce. Yet Jace could see beneath the surface, glimpsing the flickers of doubt and exhaustion hidden behind her violet eyes. Their conversations deepened, moving beyond surface exchanges to moments of raw vulnerability and tentative trust. Kalira spoke of her homeworld, a planet of towering crystal spires and endless battlefields, where the Virenth lived and died by the strength of their clans and the honor of their warriors. She described the rituals that governed their mating season with reverence and a hint of melancholy, revealing the sacrifices demanded by her people and the loneliness that often accompanied their fierce passions. She told Jace of the heavy burden placed on warriors like her, who carried the hopes of their entire race on their shoulders, especially during times of profound change. Jace shared fragments of his own past, the quiet earth he had left behind, the family and friends who had chosen safer paths, and the reasons he had stayed in the frontier, drawn by a restless spirit and the promise of something greater beyond the stars. Their dialogue was a bridge between worlds, built on honesty and the fragile hope that understanding could transcend species and instinct. The moments they shared carved out a space of calm amid the storm, a fleeting refuge where two very different souls could meet on equal footing. But beneath the fragile calm, the pressure mounted. Kalira's moods grew more volatile, her nights restless and her days marked by sudden flashes of anger or distant sadness. The tattoos on her skin glowed brighter, pulsing with a rhythm that echoed the beating of an ancient war drum. Her pheromones saturated the station's atmosphere, affecting even the most disciplined minds. Jace noticed how the normally unflappable station commander struggled to maintain order, and how factions among the alien inhabitants jockeyed for position and favor in anticipation of the coming trials. The delicate balance of peace teetered on the edge, and Jace found himself constantly on guard, aware that one wrong move could ignite chaos. One night, Jace found himself summoned to the station's medical bay, a place transformed into a sanctuary for Kalira during her most vulnerable moments. The room was dimly lit, filled with the scent of alien herbs and the soft hum of healing technology adapted to accommodate her massive physiology. Kalira sat on a reinforced cot, her glowing tattoos dimmed, but her violet eyes sharp with both exhaustion and defiance. "You bear the burden well," she murmured, her voice softer than Jace had ever heard. "To stand with me in this storm is no small feat, human." Jace approached carefully, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "I don't claim to understand it fully," he admitted, "but I know that we're both fighting to survive this, in whatever way that means." She nodded, a rare gesture of acceptance and connection. "Your presence steadies me when the fire threatens to consume everything. But the trials are not over. The final tests approach." The final tests, ancient rites of passage that would decide not only Kalira's future, but potentially the fate of those around her. For the Virenth, mating season culminated in challenges of strength, intellect, and emotional endurance. It was a brutal crucible, and Kalira faced it with all the fierce determination that defined her race. Yet the unknown presence of Jace, a fragile human thrust into this maelstrom, added an unpredictable element that neither could ignore. As the station braced for the coming storm, Jace realized that his journey was no longer about mere survival. It had become a path toward transformation, a test of his own resilience and adaptability in the face of overwhelming alien forces. The 8-foot titan before him was more than a symbol of power and passion. She was a catalyst for change, and together, they were poised to face the crucible of the mating season, bound by circumstance and the fragile threads of trust that had begun to weave between their souls. Chapter 3: The Crucible of Desire. The days bled into nights, and nights stretched endlessly beneath the cold, unblinking stars as Galador Station prepared for the ultimate reckoning of Kalira's mating season, a crucible that would test the limits of strength, will, and the fragile bonds forged between unlikely companions. The entire station was caught in the grip of an anxious anticipation, an electric undercurrent humming beneath the surface of every interaction, every whispered word behind closed doors, every guarded glance exchanged across crowded halls. The presence of the towering Virenth warrior dominated the atmosphere, her form casting shadows that seemed to lengthen with the weight of destiny pressing down on the collective soul of the station. For Jace Landon, the journey through this tempest had transformed him in ways he never imagined possible. What began as a reluctant survival in an alien world had blossomed into a complex tapestry of connection, challenge, and raw, untamed emotion. The human within him, forged in the fires of Earth's humble hardships, now stood alongside a being of mythic strength and grace, bound together by circumstance, but held fast by a growing understanding that transcended species and instinct. Yet beneath the surface of their tenuous alliance lurked the undeniable reality. The trials of the mating season were imminent, and the outcome would shape not only Kalira's fate, but the very future of their intertwined lives. The station's corridors, once bustling with routine and commerce, had become a stage for tension and spectacle. The factions that thrived on power and prestige now maneuvered with calculated precision, their ambitions intertwined with the outcome of Kalira's trials. Some sought to influence or control the Titan's fate for political gain, while others whispered of ancient prophecies and cosmic alignments that foretold upheaval and transformation. The air was thick with the scent of alien spices, synthetic pheromones, and the intangible aura of unspoken desires, each element weaving into a complex web that ensnared all who dwelled within the station's metal embrace. Jace found himself navigating this labyrinth of shifting allegiances and hidden agendas, his role evolving beyond that of mere observer or reluctant protector. He was an integral piece of a puzzle far greater than himself, a catalyst in a dance as old as the stars themselves. His connection with Kalira deepened, a fragile yet potent bond forged in moments of quiet vulnerability and shared strength. The Titans' bioluminescent tattoos pulsed in rhythm with the unspoken dialogue of their souls, a language of light and shadow that spoke louder than words. Their training sessions had become rituals of their own, moments where the barriers between human and alien blurred. Jace learned to anticipate Kalira's movements, to synchronize with the subtle shifts of her balance and breath, to match the raw power of her strikes with a calm precision born of experience and intuition. In turn, Kalira found solace in his steadiness, a grounding presence amid the chaos of her swirling emotions and rising instincts. Together, they prepared for the final trials that awaited, a series of challenges steeped in ancient tradition, demanding the ultimate proof of strength, courage, and heart. One such trial was the Dance of the Flames, an ancient Virant ritual where the warrior must navigate a maze of controlled plasma currents, each step a test of agility and willpower. The labyrinth glowed with an eerie light, its walls alive with the crackle of raw energy and the whisper of ancestral voices. Kalira faced the trial with fierce determination, her massive frame moving with an unexpected grace as she leapt, dodged, and struck through the volatile maze. Jace watched from the sidelines, heart pounding with pride and apprehension, knowing that each success brought her closer to the culmination of the mating season and the unknown future that awaited them both. As the days wore on, their bond faced tests of its own. Moments of tenderness and trust were shadowed by the ever-present threat of loss and misunderstanding. Kalira's fierce independence clashed at times with Jace's cautious nature, their different worlds colliding in sparks of frustration and longing. Yet, beneath the friction lay an unyielding respect and a hunger for connection that neither could deny. In the quiet hours, away from prying eyes and political machinations, Jace found himself drawn into Kalira's inner world, a realm of memories etched in light and pain, of battles won and lost, of love and sacrifice. She shared stories of her ancestors, warriors who had shaped the destiny of their race through acts of courage and compassion, of the price they paid for their strength. Her voice, though tinged with sorrow, carried a fierce hope that resonated deeply within him. Together, they explored the depths of their fears and desires, navigating a landscape as treacherous as any battlefield. Jace grappled with the enormity of his own feelings, the awe and intimidation inspired by Kalira's power, the tenderness ignited by her vulnerability, the exhilaration and terror of being bound to a creature so vastly different yet profoundly connected. Their relationship became a delicate dance of revelation and restraint, a balancing act that demanded courage and humility in equal measure. The final trial loomed, a confrontation that would not only test Kalira's prowess, but also reveal the strength of their bond. It was said to be a rite of passage that could transform or destroy, a crucible where past and future converged in a blaze of fire and light. As the moment approached, the station held its collective breath, the weight of destiny pressing down like a star collapsing into itself. Jace stood beside Kalira, his hand resting lightly on her arm, feeling the steady pulse of her bioluminescent glow beneath his fingers. "Whatever comes," he whispered, "we face it together." Her violet eyes met his, fierce and unwavering. "Together," she affirmed, her voice a promise forged in the heart of the storm. As the gates to the final trial opened, releasing a burst of searing energy into the chamber, they stepped forward, two souls united against the tides of fate, ready to face the crucible that would shape their destinies and forever alter the course of their lives. The chamber was vast and cavernous, its walls forged from an alloy that absorbed and reflected the primal energies swirling within. It was a place steeped in ritual and ancient power, where countless generations of Virant had faced their fate. The air was thick with charged particles that sparked and hissed, the atmosphere alive with an electric tension that seemed to vibrate through every fiber of Kalira's immense frame. This was the final trial of the mating season, a gauntlet designed not only to test physical strength, but to pierce the very essence of the warrior's spirit. Jace stood close beside her, his heart pounding in unison with the rhythmic glow of her bioluminescent tattoos. His fingers curled instinctively around the heavy hilt of the ceremonial blade she had accepted from the station elders, a weapon wrought from the rarest crystalline metals, capable of channeling the searing energy that filled the chamber. The blade seemed almost alive in her grasp, humming softly as if resonating with her own fierce will. The first test was the trial of flames, a gauntlet of plasma streams that surged and twisted like living serpents, their heat capable of incinerating flesh and metal alike. Kalira moved with a breathtaking blend of precision and raw power, her muscular limbs weaving through the unpredictable torrents with a grace that defied her size. Each leap, each strike, was a calculated gamble, a dance with death that demanded absolute focus. Jace's breath caught as she narrowly avoided a blast that could have ended the trial in an instant, her glowing tattoos flaring in a dazzling display of defiance. Yet, even as she pressed forward, the true challenge was not the flames but the storm raging within her. The mating season's fire roared in her veins, a tempest of desire and fear, strength and vulnerability. It was a force that threatened to consume her, to burn away the careful control she had maintained for so long. And Jace, standing witness to this battle of wills, felt his own resolve tested. He was not just an observer but a partner, a tether grounding her to reality even as the inferno sought to engulf them both. Beyond the physical trial lay the test of shadows, a labyrinth of twisting corridors and hidden dangers designed to strip away pretense and expose the warrior's true nature. The walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shadows crawling and shifting like hungry beasts, whispering doubts and fears meant to unravel the mind. Kalira's violet eyes narrowed as she faced this intangible adversary, her breath steady but her muscles coiled like springs ready to snap. Jace followed closely, his human senses stretched to their limits as the labyrinth played tricks on perception and reality. At times, the darkness seemed to reach out with tendrils of cold, sapping strength and hope. Yet Kalira pressed on, her bioluminescent tattoos a beacon of light and life cutting through the consuming gloom. Her voice, steady and resolute, called out in the ancient tongue of her people, a chant that wove courage and defiance into the very fabric of the space around them. In these moments of shadow and fire, Jace glimpsed the profound depth of Kalira's soul, a tapestry of scars and triumphs, pain and unyielding strength. She was more than a warrior. She was a survivor shaped by countless battles and losses, yet unbroken and fiercely determined. And as they emerged from the labyrinth into a chamber bathed in ethereal light, the bond between them had deepened, forged anew in the crucible of shared struggle. The final test awaited, the Right of Hearts, a challenge unlike any other. It was not fought with weapons or strength, but with trust and vulnerability. Kalira was to confront her own fears and desires, to open the gates of her guarded heart, and allow another to enter. For the Virant, this right was the ultimate act of courage, demanding honesty and surrender in a society that prized power above all. Jace understood the gravity of this moment. He was no longer merely the last human left on Galactic Station. He was a participant in a sacred tradition, the one chosen by fate to walk this path with Kalira. The weight of expectation pressed heavily upon him, mingling with the fierce desire to protect and connect. He met her gaze steadily, offering a silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the chamber's light shifted to a soft, pulsating glow, the ritual began. Kalira's massive hand reached out, her fingers brushing against Jace's with a surprising gentleness that belied her size. The bioluminescence along her skin flared brightly, casting shimmering patterns across his face. In that touch, centuries of history and instinct converged. The fire of the warrior and the fragility of the heart entwined in a moment of profound significance. Jace felt a rush of emotions flood through him: awe, fear, exhilaration, as the ancient energies wrapped around them. The chamber seemed to dissolve, replaced by visions of distant worlds, battles fought and won, loves lost and found. He saw Kalira's memories unfold in radiant fragments, glimpses of her ancestors and the legacy she bore. And in turn, he opened his own heart, sharing the quiet moments of solitude and hope that had defined his human existence. The Rite of Hearts was more than a test, it was a transformation. Bound by the ritual, their souls intertwined in a way that defied logic and reason, bridging the vast gulf between species. The energy that surged between them was both a blessing and a challenge, a call to face the future with courage and trust. When the ritual ended, the chamber fell silent, the glowing light fading to a soft, steady pulse. Kalira's violet eyes shone with a new depth, a mixture of strength and tenderness that spoke of change. She smiled, a rare and radiant expression that lit the vastness of her face. "We have crossed the threshold," she said softly. "Together, we are stronger." Jace nodded, the enormity of the moment settling deep within him. The mating season's crucible had not only tested their bodies and wills, but had forged a bond that transcended the physical, a connection that would carry them through whatever trials lay ahead. Yet, as they stepped from the chamber, the station's atmosphere remained charged with uncertainty. The final challenges of the mating season were not yet complete, and darker forces lurked in the shadows, waiting to test the fragile alliance they had built. The path ahead was fraught with peril and possibility, and the choices they made would echo across the stars. For Jace and Kalira, the crucible of desire was only the beginning of a journey that would reshape their destinies and the future of two very different worlds bound together by fate. Chapter 4: Bonds Forged in the Fire. The dawn that broke over Galador Station was unlike any other. Not just the cold light of distant suns filtering through the station's reinforced glass, but a dawning of transformation, of consequences rippling outward from the fierce trials that had tested Kalira and Jace. The mating season's tempest, which had roared like a cosmic storm through the corridors and hearts of those who lived here, was reaching its apex. The ancient rites that bound the Virenth had forged something new, something unexpected, a bond not only of survival, but of profound connection that transcended the stars and species lines. Jace felt the weight of that bond with every breath, every glance shared in quiet moments with Kalira, whose towering frame seemed less a symbol of isolation now and more an emblem of unity and strength. Their relationship had evolved beyond the dance of power and desire into something deeper: trust, understanding, and an unspoken promise to face whatever came together. Yet, beneath the surface, the challenges remained. Political intrigue simmered, factions within the station stirred with envy and fear, and the fragile peace balanced on a knife's edge. The morning was heavy with the scent of alien flora cultivated in the station's gardens, a strange comfort amidst the steel and shadows. Kalira moved with a regal grace through the halls, her bioluminescent tattoos pulsing softly, a heartbeat visible to all who cared to see. Jace followed, their steps synchronized in a rhythm born of shared experience and mutual reliance. The station's inhabitants watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The mating season had changed the dynamic irreversibly, and the human and Titan walking side by side were now symbols of a new era. Their first destination was the council chamber, a place where decisions that shaped the future of Galador were made. The chamber was vast, lined with crystalline pillars that refracted light into dazzling patterns, and filled with representatives from the myriad species that called the station home. The air crackled with anticipation and the undercurrent of old rivalries and new alliances. As they entered, silence fell. Kalira's towering presence commanded respect, her voice carrying the authority of a warrior who had faced death and emerged stronger. Jace felt the eyes of hundreds upon him, some curious, some skeptical, but he stood firm, bolstered by the unyielding strength he had discovered within himself and the trust he shared with Kalira. The session began with the elders recounting the trials Kalira had endured, the rites she had passed, and the bond she had formed with Jace. It was unprecedented, a human standing as partner to the Virenth warrior during such a sacred and perilous time. Debate erupted, voices rising in a chorus of hope, fear, and challenge. Some saw this union as a bridge between species, a chance to forge new alliances and understandings. Others whispered of dangers, of broken traditions, and the potential unraveling of power structures. Jace listened, weighing the arguments with a calm born of experience. He spoke not with the fire of a warrior, but with the steady conviction of a survivor who knew that true strength lay in unity and adaptability. He told tales of Earth, a world where disparate peoples had found strength in diversity, where survival depended on cooperation across boundaries once thought insurmountable. His words wove a vision of possibility, of hope amid the uncertainty. Kalira's eyes shone with pride and resolve as she added her voice, fierce and unyielding, affirming the bond they shared and the future they sought to build together. Her words echoed through the chamber, silencing dissent and rallying support. The council's mood shifted, tentative but hopeful, as the impossible began to feel inevitable. Outside the chamber, the station buzzed with renewed energy. Traders and mercenaries recalculated their alliances. Diplomats drafted new treaties. Even the most hardened warriors spoke in tones tinged with cautious optimism. The mating season's tempest had forged not only a bond between Kalira and Jace, but a catalyst for transformation that resonated across cultures and worlds. Yet, in the quiet moments away from the eyes of the many, Jace and Kalira faced their own challenges, the lingering shadows of doubt and fear, the scars of past battles, and the delicate balance between desire and duty. Their nights were filled with whispered conversations and shared vulnerabilities, moments where the Titan's fierce exterior softened and the human's guarded heart opened. They explored the depths of their connection, discovering new layers of trust and understanding that transcended language and biology. Jace learned to read the subtle shifts in Kalira's bioluminescent patterns, to anticipate the tides of her emotions and the unspoken needs beneath her warrior's pride. Kalira found comfort in the steadiness of Jace's presence, a grounding force amid the chaos of her instincts and the storms that raged within. Their union was a dance of contrasts, strength and vulnerability, passion and restraint, alien and human, woven together by threads of fate and choice. It was a testament to the power of connection in a universe often defined by division and conflict. As the days turned to weeks, the station prepared for the next phase, the ceremony of unity, a final rite that would publicly affirm the bond between Kalira and Jace and set the course for their shared future. It was a moment laden with symbolism and significance, watched eagerly by all who called Galador home. The ceremony was held beneath the great dome of the station's central plaza, where light from distant stars mingled with the glow of bioluminescent flora and ancient crystals embedded in the floor. The gathered crowd represented a kaleidoscope of cultures and species, each witness to a moment that transcended their differences. Kalira and Jace stood side by side, their hands joined, their eyes locked in a silent vow. The elders spoke words that echoed across the ages, promises of protection, loyalty, and the forging of new paths. As the ritual reached its climax, a radiant energy enveloped them, the bioluminescent tattoos on Kalira's skin blazing with renewed brilliance, the human's steady heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the alien song. In that moment, the impossible became real, a union of worlds and wills, a beacon of hope and resilience in a galaxy too often divided by fear and misunderstanding. The crowd erupted in cheers and reverent silence alike, the station's atmosphere charged with the promise of change. Yet, even as the celebration unfolded, Jace and Kalira knew that their journey was far from over. The bond they forged in fire would be tested by challenges yet unseen, forces of tradition and power, enemies lurking in the shadows, and the unpredictable tides of fate itself. But together, they were ready. For in the heart of the Titan and the soul of the human burned a shared flame, a fire that no darkness could extinguish. The days following the ceremony of unity unfolded like a shifting kaleidoscope of emotions and challenges, transforming Galador Station into a crucible where past, present, and future collided with a force as relentless as the cosmic storms that danced through the void outside. The union between Kalira and Jace was no longer just a personal bond. It had become a symbol that rippled through every layer of the station's complex social fabric, challenging traditions, breaking barriers, and forging new paths amid a galaxy that often seemed defined by division and suspicion. Yet beneath the grand gestures and public celebrations, the true test of their connection was only just beginning, a trial that would demand every ounce of strength, trust, and courage they possessed. In the immediate aftermath of the ceremony, the station's atmosphere was charged with an almost electric intensity. Alien species from across the cluster whispered in corridors and crowded markets, speculating about the implications of a human standing beside the Titan of the Virenth mating season. Some viewed their union as a beacon of hope, a living testament to the power of unity across species and cultures. Others saw it as a dangerous anomaly and unsettling fracture in the order that had governed Galador for centuries. The council chambers echoed with heated debates, and the delicate alliances that kept the station's fragile peace began to shift as factions maneuvered to align themselves with the new power dynamic. Jace found himself thrust into the eye of this storm, a reluctant figure whose past as a solitary survivor seemed incongruous with his newfound role as partner to one of the most formidable warriors in known space. His days were filled with meetings and discussions, navigating political intrigue with a deftness born not of experience, but of necessity and instinct. Every word he spoke was scrutinized, every gesture interpreted as a signal in the intricate dance of station politics. Yet beneath the surface of these external pressures, Jace and Kalira forged a sanctuary, a space where the fierce Titan's bioluminescent glow mingled with the quiet steadiness of human resolve. Their nights were a refuge from the relentless demands of their public roles. In the privacy of Kalira's quarters, a chamber reinforced to accommodate her towering frame and lined with symbols of her warrior heritage, they explored the depths of their bond with a tenderness that belied the storm raging beyond the walls. The soft glow of her tattoos cast shifting patterns across the room, painting their faces in hues of sapphire and violet as they shared whispered stories and fragile promises. Jace learned to read the subtle language of her body, the flicker of light signaling mood shifts, the tension in muscles that foretold inner conflict, the rare moments when vulnerability slipped through the veneer of strength. Kalira, in turn, discovered the steady heartbeat of humanity that pulsed through Jace, a rhythm marked not by cosmic power, but by resilience and compassion forged in the quiet struggles of Earth's forgotten worlds. She marveled at the courage it took for a being so small and fragile in stature to stand unwavering beside her, to meet the fire of her season without flinching or retreat. Their connection was a bridge across worlds, a delicate weave of alien passion and human endurance, and in its embrace, they found both solace and strength. Yet, the path ahead was fraught with dangers both known and unseen. The mating season's final challenge loomed, a trial not of strength or ritual, but of sacrifice and choice. In the ancient traditions of the Virenth, the culmination of the season demanded that the warrior and their chosen partner face the reckoning, a journey into the depths of their fears and desires, a confrontation with the shadows that threatened to unravel their bond. It was a test of faith as much as fortitude, a crucible where love and loyalty were forged or shattered. As the day of the reckoning approached, the station grew tense, its inhabitants sensing the shift like the calm before a supernova's blast. Kalira's movements became more measured, her bioluminescent tattoos dimming and flaring in a rhythm that echoed the gathering storm within. Jace observed the subtle changes with a mixture of awe and concern, understanding that the Titan was preparing not just her body but her soul for the trials ahead. In the quiet hours before the reckoning, they retreated to the observation deck, a place where the endless stars stretched like a tapestry of light and possibility. The vastness of space offered a stark contrast to the intensity of their shared struggles, a reminder of the infinite unknown that lay beyond. Here, beneath the silent watch of distant suns, they spoke of fears and hopes, of the fragility and power of the bond they had forged. Jace's voice was steady but laced with vulnerability. "Whatever comes, I want you to know that I'm here not just as your partner, but as your ally, your friend. We face this together." Kalira's violet eyes held his with fierce determination, softened by a rare tenderness. "Your strength has been a beacon in the darkness, human. I am honored to face the reckoning by your side." The reckoning itself was a journey unlike any they had faced. It began in a chamber deep within the station, its walls lined with ancient carvings and humming with the resonance of Virenth ancestral spirits. The air shimmered with latent energy as they stepped forward, hand in hand, ready to confront the shadows that lurked within. The trial forced them to confront visions of loss and fear ghosts from their pasts that threatened to tear at the fabric of their bond. Kalira faced memories of battles lost and loved ones left behind, the weight of duty and sacrifice pressing heavy on her heart. Jace confronted the loneliness of being the last of his kind, the uncertainty of his place in a universe that often seemed indifferent. Yet, in facing these shadows, they found strength in each other. Their shared resolve formed a shield against despair, a promise that together they could overcome even the darkest trials. The chamber pulsed with their combined energy, a symphony of light and shadow weaving a new narrative of hope and unity. When the reckoning ended, they emerged transformed not just as individuals, but as a united force capable of shaping the future of Galador Station and beyond. The trials had tested their limits, but it was their bond born in fire and tempered in trust that had carried them through. As they stepped back into the light of the station, a new chapter awaited, a future where human and Titan walked side by side, forging paths that would resonate across the stars. The mating season was over, but their journey together had only just begun. The aftermath of the reckoning was a reverberating silence that settled over Galador Station like the stillness after a storm. The kind of quiet that follows upheaval, profound, uncertain, and pregnant with possibility. Jace and Kalira stood side by side in the station's vast central plaza, surrounded by a gathering crowd of diverse faces, some familiar, many new, all bearing witness to a union that had transcended tradition, species, and expectation. The Virenth mating season, with all its fury and glory, had culminated in a bond that neither the galaxy's ancient customs nor the relentless tides of fate could unravel. Jace could still feel the pulse of the trial within him, a rhythm synced not only to his own heartbeat, but to the glowing patterns that danced along Kalira's skin. Their connection was no longer just a fragile thread but a mighty tether, forged in the crucible of fire and shadow, tempered by sacrifice and trust. The enormity of what they had endured and what they had become together weighed upon him with both a solemn gravity and an invigorating sense of purpose. The station's crowd was a tapestry of emotion, awe, curiosity, hope, and a cautious optimism that shimmered beneath the surface. For many, the sight of a human standing confidently beside the towering titan of the Virenth mating season was a revelation. It was proof that bonds could be forged beyond the constraints of biology or culture, that trust could bloom even in the most unlikely soils. The murmurs of skepticism and fear that had once echoed through the corridors had softened, replaced by whispers of respect and wonder. The future of Galador Station, and perhaps the galaxy beyond, felt irrevocably altered. Kalira's voice broke the silence, deep, resonant, yet filled with a warmth that few had ever heard from the warrior. "We stand here not as two separate beings, but as one. Our strength is in our unity, our future bound by the choices we make together." Jace stepped forward, his own voice steady with conviction. "We've faced the impossible and come through it not as conquerors or victims, but as partners. There is power in that, power to change, to heal, to build." The council elders, once hesitant, now spoke with renewed confidence. Their words called for a new era, one where alliances were redefined and old prejudices cast aside in favor of cooperation and mutual respect. They recognized that the mating season's trials were more than a biological imperative. They were a catalyst for evolution, not just of a species, but of an entire community. But beneath the public celebration, Jace and Kalira knew the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. The galaxy was vast and often unforgiving. There were forces that would resist change, old rivalries, fears of the unknown, and the unpredictable tides of politics and power. Yet the bond they had forged was a beacon, a light to guide them through darkness and uncertainty. In the weeks that followed, their partnership blossomed in ways both expected and surprising. Jace adapted to the rhythms of the Virenth world, learning not just their customs, but their language of light and silence, reading the subtle flickers of tattoos and the cadence of breath. Kalira embraced the nuances of humanity, the quiet strength found in patience, the courage woven through vulnerability, the power of hope that endured beyond war and survival. Together, they navigated the complex web of Galador's society, bridging gaps between species and cultures with a blend of warriors' honor and human empathy. Their story became legend, a tale told in hushed tones in distant starports and across digital networks, inspiring others to believe in the power of connection beyond boundaries. Their nights were a sanctuary, a place where the towering alien and the solitary human found solace in each other's arms, where the fire of mating season had transformed into a steady flame of companionship. The challenges they faced were real, but their shared strength made the impossible possible. One evening, as the station's twin suns set behind the asteroid belt, casting long shadows across the gardens they had helped cultivate, Kalira turned to Jace with a smile that held the promise of tomorrow. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "Together, we will face whatever comes." Jace nodded, feeling a profound sense of belonging he had never known. Together, he agreed. And so, beneath the endless stars, the last human and the mighty Virenth Titan forged a new path, one born in fire, tempered by trust, and destined to reshape the fate of worlds. The galaxy watched, waited, and wondered. But for Jace and Kalira, the journey was theirs alone, a testament to the enduring power of bonds forged in the fire.